A lot of people are yelling, some yelling profanity, saying that they can't believe this, that it's unfair. But the mood out here is a little tense right now as people are wondering how others are going to react to the news.
Rochelle, you were involved all morning with the preparations on the part of Bell's supporters, traveling along with them as they were making their way through Queens. Was this decisive a result in favor of the detectives? Anything they had considered? I think a lot of people were thinking it might be split, but an absolute acquittal, I think, has got to be a surprise to many of them.
Yes, I was walking with them. Some of them said they didn't expect every one of the officers to be found guilty on all the charges, but they expected something to stick, at least on one of the officers. Many people mentioned Michael Oliver's name. They thought because he had fired so many shots that some of the charges would stick for him, but that didn't happen, and as you can imagine, they're all in shock right now. Many of them are not even speaking.
Aside from Trent Benefield, have you seen any of the other major players in this case exit from the courthouse, Rochelle?
I've not seen any of the other players yet, just Trent Benefield. He was whisked away in a car by a group of people who were surrounding him for support.
And I know you said there's a lot of tension among the crowd there, and a lot of anger or upset people. What is your sense? Are they waiting to hear from Al Sharpton right now? Because he had said that he was planning to speak immediately following the verdict.
Well, I am not standing directly in front of the courthouse right now, so I don't really know what's going on with that. I'm standing to the side of the courthouse where a lot of people are now making their way either to their cars or to the train station. There's some people who are still standing outside waiting to hear Al Sharpton speak. I think many are looking to see what he's going to say and then maybe react after that.
Yeah, again, we're talking to New York One's Rochelle Boone after the not guilty verdict on all counts for all the detectives charged in the Sean Bell case. Rochelle, set the scene for us there again, because there is a large contingent of supporters of Sean Bell, a large contingent of supporters for the detectives, and indeed both of those sides, the Detectives Endowment Association, their union, and the Sean Bell supporters led by Al Sharpton, all of them planning to comment on this, and all of them turning out in force. Were a lot of them outside as the verdict was read, and how did they get word of this?
I think we may have we lost Rochelle? I think we may have lost her. As we wait for the Al Sharpton press conference, though, what I think we can expect him to say is that they may now pursue federal civil rights charges on this, because he had left that as an out, that they have their civil case pending against the city, which is a multi-million-dollar case suing the city for the action. But they did mention that if there is an acquittal in this case, that they're going to look at the federal avenue next. And
it's a path that's been pursued before, but again, there are all sorts of questions about whether the prosecutors want to go ahead with that, and whether they can reach whatever standard of evidence is necessary. In that case, there were serious problems in this case, and we could tell that it was a weakness in the case at the time that it was happening, that there was some difficulty in credibility of testimony from some of the witnesses.
And that's really what it hinged on. Obviously the forensics of all the shots fired, but aside from that, it was to really, who do you believe? And each side accusing the other of lying is what it came down to. And clearly the judge believed the detectives.
Again, the mayor and the police commissioner have both been reluctant to comment on specifics about what precautions they have taken, whether around the courthouse in Queens or elsewhere in the city, with regard to any protests that may break out as a result of this decision, only saying that the police will be ready, but beyond that, not a lot of specifics from the police department. We did see a much heavier than usual police presence and presence of court officers outside the court this morning as we awaited these judgments. Here's the pictures of some of the principals from earlier today as they were preparing to hear what they would soon learn to be a not guilty verdict on all counts.
I'm also curious, I know we've heard that we're going to be hearing from the side of the shooting victims, led by Al Sharpton, but have we heard whether and where the detectives and their union may be speaking from, whether they'll be addressing the press from the courthouse?
You know, they've got their plan has been to have a press conference at their headquarters, which is in Manhattan. So that's the intent. At least that's how it was planned beforehand. These things have a way of evolving in a case like this. But the likely, what we'll hear from first is is from Al Sharpton and Nicole Polt-Bell, who have been very visible in these past 24 hours particularly.
Right, which is clearly what all those supporters who marched to the courthouse this morning are waiting to hear as well as the TV cameras, because they held that all-night vigil. Clearly none of them happy with the results, not the result that they were hoping for this morning.
And you know, that, as we've been saying, is the interesting part of this, in that that there is no cause for any sort of feeling that this was a split decision. This was simply a complete victory for the defense, for the three detectives in this case.
Interesting also to point out that none of the detectives took the stand in their own defense. Their grand jury testimony was presented as evidence at this trial, but none of them took the stand, and the judge clearly used their testimony from the grand jury hearing as well as other evidence that was presented. If you look at the witness count, there were 56 witnesses. 50 of them were witnesses for the prosecution, were they not? Or am I getting that backwards?
No, it was not a complicated defense. It was
50 of the witnesses.
It was a very straightforward defense, and you know, they didn't deny firing the shots. They didn't deny being there that night and having suspicions about these three men. What they said is that this is in the line of our duty. This is how police work happens. We felt there was danger, and this is how the events evolved that night. Now, you talked about the defense strategy here. The other critical part of this strategy was in deciding not to go with a jury trial. They made this a bench trial, meaning that the judge made the decision on his own about this verdict, and that takes away some of the politics for the defense in dealing with a jury trial and having to explain things to jurors and be sensitive to the way jurors might react to a situation.
Absolutely.
The implication in the defense choosing that approach was that they really felt like the legal merits of the case stood on their own, that the prosecution wasn't going to be able to achieve the level of evidence required.
And then when they weren't able to change the venue, they threw the dice and basically left it in Justice Cooperman's hands, and clearly that for them that was the right legal strategy to play.
This is the view from overhead. The courthouse in Queens. New York One's Melanie Kapadia is somewhere down among those people there, waiting to get word from some of the supporters of the detectives and some of the supporters of Sean Bell and the other victims of this shooting. Melanie.
Pat, well, let me tell you, when it first happened, no one here in the media was aware until we suddenly started hearing screams from the crowd. Basically, the crowd is just a few feet away from where we are right now. There is a whole bunch of media here waiting for the family to come out from the courthouse, which is right behind me. Suddenly, we started hearing screams of no, 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 swearing, and then loud cries. There were a bunch of women who were crying loudly, and then at that point, everyone was kind of screaming, not guilty, not guilty. So people here were aware of what was going on inside the courthouse. Right now, though, it's relatively calm. We have some people holding up signs saying the NAACP says guilty. So, of course,